Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here for VideoCopilot.net, and welcome to a very exciting tutorial, as you would expect here at the Video Copilot compound. And I mean it this time. No, we've got some cool things. We've got some video, we've got this orange light, and actually I just thought of something. The problem with video is you can see my shifty eyes, and usually not supposed to see that. I'm supposed to, say something like, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun. And I don't really mean it, but you don't know that because you can't see what's going on. So this could be a problem. However, it is an important thing to understand the shifty eyes. That means that, something is shifty. For example, you have a friend and they buy a new car and it's like a green station wagon. And they're like, hey, what do you think of my new car? And you're like, wow, that's a sweet car. I'd ride with you right now, but actually I've got to go do something, but definitely in the future, like way, way down in the future. Or you're eating dinner and your wife says, how was everything? And the truth is, the biscuits were a little overcooked, but you're not going to say anything. You're going to say, honey, it was the best dinner I've ever had. Or here's a real important one. Hey, have you ever seen the site VideoCopilot.net? And you say, that's the best website I've ever seen. And it is, okay, so we're getting a little off track. I think in the future, I'll actually try to write some things down that are actually funny and use those instead of just making stuff up. But that's what we do here, and that's just the way it is. So we're going to try out this video thing, and what we're going to do is probably just shut it off as the tutorial starts. And it's kind of similar to like an action movie where the soldiers have like a helmet camera and there's a commander back at the base and he can see all the soldiers. And the thing about it is when they die, their camera shuts off. And it'll kind of be like that where it doesn't really make any sense, but that's just the way it is. So with that in mind, let's shut that off and let's get started. Okay, let's go and take a look at this example. Okay, pretty cool. This was made with two still images, the underground parking structure and the field. And we used a technique called camera projection in order to give it a little bit more depth and some various textures to create the underground surface and the cement structures. We did some 3D layers to create sort of the built-in crevices and such. So it's a pretty cool technique, and we have a little bit of information on camera projection in some of our previous tutorials. Number 38 and 37 cover the technique, and number 39 shows you a technique using Photoshop's vanishing point tool. So both of these methods could be used. We're going to take a look at the camera projection method here today. So let's jump right into it. There's a lot of things to do. We have our field and we have our garage. We're going to take our garage image, drop it into a new composition. Now this could be done with video, it just needs to be on a tripod and locked down. Now the thing about the camera projection is it's a little bit cumbersome, but it is worth it. So let's go ahead and create a new camera, and we'll make it 24mm, which is on the wider angle lens, and we'll hit OK. We're going to create a new light, so we'll make it a spotlight. Now in the earlier tutorials we used a point light, but for some reason in CS4 you have to use a spotlight, so no problem. Set the cone angle to 180 and cast shadows, and we'll hit OK. Then we also need to create a solid to use as our ground plane. So we'll create a new, and then we also need to create a solid. So we'll create a new solid, we'll make it white, and we'll hit OK. Now we're going to add a grid, generate grid, and this is going to help us line it up with the floor surface. Now we want to make it a 3D layer. We can toggle the switches to bring that up. We'll make it a 3D layer. We'll take the rotation tool and we're going to rotate it on the x-axis, and we'll move it down, try to line it up with the surface here. And once you kind of get it close, you should be able to move it around and fit it in line with everything. So that looks pretty close. We're going to go ahead and scale it up. and we'll scale it out. Now we're going to keep it pretty simple, but camera projection can get quite complicated. Like we could build planes for the pillars here, and we're going to just keep it simple though. So looks pretty good here, and we're going to duplicate it, edit, duplicate, and we're going to move the second copy up to the ceiling and just line that up. And then we're going to push the y-axis down. We want to make sure that the ends of both of our layers are at the bottom of the frame. So that'll be important in a little bit. And then we need to make one more copy to use as this back area. So we'll hit Control D to duplicate, and then we'll rotate the plane and then push it back. Now we can go to a top view, and it'll be a little easier to line it up, and we just want to line it up with the back layers here. So right about there, back to the active camera, and we can scale it down just to make it easier to see. We'll shut that off. Actually, we'll just shut the light off, and we'll move it up here. So you can kind of see we're recreating the geometry of the scene to make this work. So we want it to overlap a little bit, so that's okay. Then we're going to shut off the grid effect. We can just shut off the effects there. Now there's a few things we need to do to set this up. So we need to first move the light to the position of the camera. So we'll hit P, bring up the camera position, and then we'll hit P on the light, and we'll copy the position of the camera, Control C, select the position of the light, Control V. And so the light gets moved. And also, we want to make our image, our garage image, 3D as well. And then we're going to hit P and move it to the position of the camera as well. So we'll select it and we'll paste it. So now that image is in the same location as our other two elements. We'll go to the top view. And these views are really helpful for navigating in 3D space, obviously. We want to make sure we line this up. We're going to move it forward out in front of the camera. So the camera's right here, and we're going to have our image right here. And what's going to happen is the light is going to shoot through the image and project it onto our scene. And we'll go back to the camera here. And we need to take our garage image and scale it down so that it fills the frame right about there. And then we need to set up the light and the materials in a special way so that this works. First of all, we want to set the garage. We'll hit AA, and that brings up the camera setting. So our projection image, we want to set it to cast shadows only. So click it twice, and we want to turn up the light transmission to 100%. And so now it's projecting onto our planes, but our planes are doing a few weird things. So we need to go into the settings. I'll select them all, hit AA, and we want to set the accept lights to off. And so now it looks like we're back to our original image. However, this is being projected onto our geometry. So if I come up here to the orbit tool and move around, you can see it's sort of three-dimensional. Now here's how we're going to be doing it. Very simply, if I take the track tool, we're just going to be moving the camera up in this kind of a fashion. So by keeping it simple, we can get away with it because there is some, obviously some strange things happening, and, it can look a little bit flat. So we want to be very careful how we use the technique and blend it with our other layers. So we've created this part, which is the main part of this effect, and let's go ahead and add a little bit of our cement foundation above this parking structure. So we're going to be using a combination of some textures and images that are found on some different sites online. I'll have all the information in the project file for this tutorial, so you can download it, check it out, and that way if it changes, I can update it. We've got this concrete image and some pipes that we're going to be using to hide some of the parallaxing problems. But first, we're going to take this concrete new, which is just kind of a cool hard concrete, and we're going to bring it out. We're going to make it 3D, and it's very important that we set up our layers this way. Because we're using the camera projection, we want to make sure we set the accept shadows and lights to off. And that way it won't be affected by the lights or the projection. And we'll go back up to the top view, and we're going to move our concrete forward to be right in line with our bottom layer so that it's right at the edge. And so if we go to the active camera, move it up, scale it down, I guess. And we'll overlap it just a little bit like that. Now we do want to create our camera move. So let's take a null object. We'll make it 3D. We'll call it cam. Hit return to rename layers. And we'll put it right above the camera, and then we'll link the camera to the camera using the parent. And then we'll take the cam null, hit P, and we'll move forward to about 3 seconds. And we'll set a keyframe. And remember, we're going to be coming down into the parking structure. So if we back time it, then we can move the null object up. And as we do this, we're traveling through the cement and all the different parts of the image. And you could obviously make this very complicated, or very simple. So it's up to you. Now, one other important thing when doing camera projection is we need to turn up the shadow map quality. So if we go to the comp settings, advanced, we go to options and set the shadow map resolution to 4000. We'll set it to 2000 so that things are a little quicker here, but turn that up to make everything a lot sharper and more detailed. All right, let's start with a little bit of color correction. So we'll choose Effect, Curves, and we'll bring it down so that we get it to be a little bit darker. And we might also try to match some of the warm tones. So we'll go to the red channel and just punch it up a little bit, and the blue channel, bring it down just a touch. So just trying to match the color tones. Now, the thing about the next few steps is we want to make it seem as if it's a little bit more 3D and not so flat. So let's scale this down just a little bit, and let's duplicate it. So I'll hit Control D, and then I'm going to take the rectangle tool, and we're just going to mask out the edge here. And we also want to move the anchor point of our layer to be at that edge. So we'll take the Pan Behind tool, and this will allow us to move the anchor point. So we'll move this down to right at the edge. And then we'll take the Rotate tool, and we'll rotate it here. So if you look closely, you can see that now we have a little bit more of a realistic edge. And we can take that second copy and maybe brighten it up a little bit. And that way you can see the difference between the two layers. And it looks like it's overlapping just a little bit, so we can maybe move that down a little bit. That's good. So the lights down here kind of projecting up, so that helps make it look a little bit more 3D, and kind of like an overhang inside of the garage. So little things like that are really going to make this look a lot more realistic. Now, we also want to add some pipes. So if we go back to our project, we've got some cool pipes, and we'll bring that right out. We'll make it a 3D layer, and we'll hit AA, shut off shadows and lights. Perfect. And we're going to take the mask tool, and we're just going to mask out a couple of these pipes. So we'll take this large silver pipe, mask that out, and then we'll duplicate it and maybe move the mask down to select another one of them. And by the way, Control T, when you have a mask, or double click, allows you to resize it. And that looks good. We can probably make some more pipes from that image, but we'll just go ahead and use these two for now. Just centering the anchor point. And we're also going to color correct these pipes. So we'll take this one, we'll just make it a little darker. And that's just the thing about doing shots like this. It's just a matter of tweaking it and making adjustments. So we'll just do it and try not to complain. And maybe, there we go. So we've got these pipes. We're going to stretch them out. Now I'm going to hide the masks, and we'll just stretch them out this way. And we'll go to the top view. Now our concrete is right here, and our pipes are right here. So we want to move our pipes to be right in front of the concrete, and we might take the second pipe and move it back a little bit, just so there's a little bit of a 3D kind of parallax. So we'll go back, and we'll move it up some, and size it down so it's a little thinner to match the other pipes in the scene. And our larger pipe, we'll move it down, and also we'll scale it. So, you can make different copies and, have these be further in the scene, and whenever you do like a copy of something, offset it a little bit, try to randomize it, maybe make it darker, so that it doesn't, just jump out as, just being a copy or a duplicate. So that looks pretty good. And let's see how that blends with our camera movement. So just kind of go to half res here, and so that's not half bad. You could probably play around with the placement of these pipes and create even more pipes and push them around and make it seem like the scene has a lot going on. But the key here is to kind of block your view of that top part so that it doesn't look so flat during that camera move. Okay, we want to add a little 3D cutout to our cement layer. So I'm just going to brighten it up for the tutorial right now so that you can see what's happening. So we're going to take our cement layer and duplicate it. And we'll move it up here. And we want to line up the crevice with the top of our other layer. And then we're going to move our anchor point right to that edge. And then we can take the mask tool and we can maybe cut this part out. So if we look at this by itself, we're going to take this one layer and we're going to mask out the bottom area. We'll set it to subtract, or actually we could just leave it and then rotate it forward like this. And so when the camera goes up, we're going to see past that area. And I just want to line this up a little bit better. Hide the masks. And so this is a good start, and then we can duplicate it again, Control D or duplicate, and maybe move it up. And again, we'll duplicate it and we'll rotate it back forward, and then we'll push it back in Z space so that it sort of fills the area. And we want to probably repeat the edges, and we can do that with an effect called motion tile. So bring that out, set it to mirror the edges, and then just expand the width. And then we may want to add that to our other layers as well. So we'll copy that to our top layer and our bottom layer. So what's cool about this texture is it's got these little dark edges that really give you a place to blend this effect. We'll take our other layer here now and duplicate it, and we'll move it up. We might even set it to be right about here, so we'll chop off the bottom here with a mask, and we'll set it to subtract. So one of the things about After Effects layers is that if you don't have like a edge that has a texture on it, and like right here it's just kind of a sharp cutoff, it tends to look a little bit fake, and you usually want to have something to break that up. Let's go into our project, and we have this concrete leaking, which has like this cool top part we're going to try to use. And so in order to put this right in place, I'm going to take the top layer here and I'm going to duplicate it. And by duplicating it, I'm going to replace it with our new layer. So hold down Alt or Option and drag it out and then let it go. And what it'll do is replace anything that is currently there, and so it's at the correct position. So we'll hit M and delete the mask. what we're going to do is cut off the top part of this image. So disable the curve and take the rectangle mask and just draw a shape right around this top part. And we can scale it up, and we might want to add some color correction. Maybe a tint effect, desaturate it some. And we want to feather the mask, so hit F and we'll set it to maybe 8. So this is a cool element that we can use to, break up parts that are going to be a little bit too sharp. And if you look at the original example as we go through, you can see that that is just being used to break it up and, gives you a little bit of depth as you travel through these different things to kind of show layers and such. So just play around with the placement, and like maybe we could put it down here at this edge. And so we'll go ahead and duplicate that leaking image, and we'll move it up here right to the edge. And that will be where we connect our other shot, so that there's sort of a harsh edge there. Also, let's finish the camera move. So we'll take the cam animation and just move it all the way up until it's out of the frame. And by the way, just real quick, in the original example, I also added some pipes, right here, so that there was kind of more going on. And then as far as the vent, we can probably add that real quick. Just have this cool vent image, and this helps to create more depth as you're flying past. So you're not just looking at a uniform texture, but instead you're looking at something that has various things going by. So let's duplicate the concrete, and we'll again hold down Alt and replace it, and that way it's right at the same plane level. And we'll scale it down, and we'll probably mask out the edge here. So we'll just draw a mask, feather it maybe about 4 pixels, and we'll move it down. So and with a little bit of work, you could just add all sorts of detail and really help sell the shot. So this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and move on to creating the field part of this shot. So we'll go down here, shot, take the field, drop it into a new comp. And pardon me while we run through this. I don't want to waste too much of your time. It's basically repeating what we just did. So we're going to create a camera. We're going to create a spotlight. And we'll go to the active camera here. And we're also going to create a solid layer. And we want to move the light to the position of the camera. So I'll copy the position of the camera, paste it to the position of the light. We'll make our white solid 3D. We'll add a grid. And then we'll rotate this flat and try to line it up with the surface. And then we're going to scale it up some. Move it forward. And remember, we want the edge to line up right with the end of the image like that. And that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and duplicate the layer, and we'll rotate it up, and we'll go to the top view here. And we want to back it up to the very end of our image, and then we'll move it up, and this is going to be sort of our sky plane. We'll scale this out as well as this. We'll make sure it fills the frame. So if we go to a custom view real quick, this is basically what we've created, sort of a little L that's going to fit our scene pretty well. And we want to go ahead, shut off the effects, and we want to project our image. So with the camera, we'll copy the position to the position of our image that we want to project. We'll make it 3D. Hit P, paste the position, go to the top view again, and we'll move that image forward past the light. Go back to the active camera, and scale this down so that it fills the frame. And then we'll hit AA, set it to cast shadows only, and turn up the light transmission. And then for the layers, shut off except lights. So hit off, and that looks pretty good. And like before, go into the comp settings and set the options for the shadow map to about 2000, but 4000 is better. Okay, this is looking good, and we're going to create that null object to move the camera around. So we'll make it 3D, type cam, and we'll move that above the light, and then parent the camera to that. And then we'll hit P, set a keyframe, move forward to 3 seconds, and then we'll move this down, actually. Something like that. Now the thing about this shot is it looks pretty flat, and we want to fix that by using an image of some plants. And we'll bring this out. This is basically an image that I matted in Photoshop, and we're going to scale it down. We'll make it 3D. We'll go to half res. And remember, we need to hit AA and shut off the shadows and lights. And we'll move it down. And the cool thing about this straight line is that tells us where the image is in 3D space. So right there, it's kind of in the middle. And we want to move it forward to the edge and then maybe off to the side. And this is going to help sell this shot by making it seem like there's a little bit of 3D depth and we're not just passing through a flat layer, even though we are. So we'll duplicate this layer and just move it around and just try to hide some of the edges and the hinges in the shot. You know, you can even rotate it. You know, and you can probably color correct it so that it blends with our shot a little bit better, but that's up to you. In the original example, I had like a sign kind of sitting in the middle of nowhere, and you can obviously, you know, do that. There's some cool textures of like a road sign and like a pole, and I just used that as a 3D layer, so similar to the way the plants are working here. Now we do need to create the edge of the earth basically as we travel beneath it, and here we have this picture of a road kind of as a slice plane, and we're going to use that. So let's bring that out. We'll make it a 3D layer, shut off the shadow and lights, and perfect. We'll go to the top view, and we want to line this shot up right with the edge of the image, which would be this big red one here. So we'll go back to the active camera, scale this roadside down a bit. We also need to mask it out, so we'll take the pen tool and we'll just you know, draw some masks here. And that's pretty good. We'll go ahead and move this layer down to the edge. We want it to be just higher than the edge so that we don't see it you know, where it connects. We'll hide the masks there. Now there's a cool effect called roughen edges, and we're going to bring that down here, and if we get close enough we can see what this is doing, and it basically creates, you know, like a fractal edge, and that's good because we don't want a perfect straight line. You know, this is supposed to be, you know, natural, organic, or whatever, and we want to make sure that it blends more realistically, so getting that out of the way really makes it look more believable. Now the other thing we want to do is add some color correction. So we'll darken this edge a bit. And you know, you could play around with that, but it's kind of fun that, you know, it's quite contrasted so that it really kind of sticks out to you as you travel down beneath it. And there's a very cool texture we have here, this earth rough texture. And we're going to use it to kind of make it seem like we're going down through layers of the earth. And we'll just bring that out, make it a 3D layer, shut off the shadows and lights. So I think you guys get the idea here. We're just sort of layering in these various effects to make this shot more exciting, and just takes a little bit of time, but it's definitely worth it in the end. So we'll bring it down here. We're gonna add a mask because we want to blend this a bit. So select that area at the top, subtract it, and then hit F to feather it. And the other cool thing is that when you feather an image and add the roughen edges, you can create a very realistic, more natural blending. So we can turn the sharpness down, and it's still a little bit fractally, but it blends a little bit nicer. So you can play around with the size of the border, the scale, and the complexity and stuff. So that looks good. Let's add some color correction. Maybe a little bit of that green to really blend it. So this is kind of where you can play around with how you want this shot to look, as far as the layers of the crust and what it looks like. So we're just going to kind of cover the main idea. Now obviously you could add in some other stuff like a buried alien or something like that. Maybe like a big robot alien that has like 3 legs, and at some point it just kind of bursts out of the ground and starts blowing people away with like laser beams. Maybe. And if you're going to make a movie, I would definitely get Tom Cruise to be involved in that. By the way, that's a reference to War of the Worlds. But the reason I bring it up is because there's a great scene in that movie where Tom Cruise, he's in like a truck or a van or something, and he's basically borrowing it. And the guy's like, comes up and he's like, hey, get out of the car. And he's like, Manny, get in the car. And he's like, hey, what do you mean? Come on, stop messing around. Get out of the car. And he's like, Manny, get in the car. Manny, shut up. Manny, get in the car or you're going to die. So it got pretty exciting right there. And excuse me for getting a little off track. Just a pretty intense scene. So, okay, so this is looking pretty good. If we go down here a little bit, we may want to animate the camera further. So we'll just go to that keyframe for that null object and move it past the dirt layer. And we may even duplicate that layer and bring it down so that it looks like we're traveling past even more dirt. So right about there. Okay, and we might want to add a little bit of blur to our plants so that they blend with the surrounding area, but we'll just skip that for now so that you guys can see how we connect these two shots. So now I just noticed something, that our comp is actually 3 minutes long, not 3 seconds long, and that's not going to be a very dramatic animation. So on our camera animation, let's take that keyframe and move it forward to about 3 seconds instead of 3 minutes. And we'll hit Control K and we'll adjust our comp really quick. So we'll set this to 10 seconds and move forward to 3 seconds. Line that up. And then we'll go to the garage and move that keyframe over to about 3 seconds. And Control K, set the comp to 10 seconds. Okay, now that we set the shots up correctly, let's take our 2 shots, drop it into a new comp. We'll sequence the layers, hit OK. And we have our 2 shots together. So now we need to blend them together. And we're going to be adjusting the animation, but we need to just get it so that the speeds match up pretty close. So we'll overlap our 2 layers and sort of hook them up. Now the thing we're going to notice is whether or not they stay connected or one goes faster or slower. So right here, now you can see that the dirt layer is moving just a little bit quicker. So we'll go to the field and maybe slow the animation down by just moving it over just a little bit. So that's basically the idea. We want to line them up. Now, the reason we're not building these scenes in the same one comp is that the camera projection light will sort of conflict in the two scenes. So by separating them, we can connect them in this way, but also you can make other layers of things. You can make, like a secret bunker or whatever in its own comp, and then mix it together so that you have tons of layers connected, but then you can focus on one at a time rather than having this really large comp to deal with. So this is looking pretty good. The cement looks a little bit bright, but we could try to color correct that here. The thing about this is we want to adjust the animation, but we're actually going to adjust the animation last. So let's go and trim our comp, hit N and trim the comp here. And I want to add a little bit of a vignette. So we'll create a adjustment layer, and we'll add a ellipse mask, and we'll add a curves adjustment. We'll subtract the mask, and then we'll feather the mask, and then we'll darken the curves adjustment. So I do this so much that I don't even have to see what's going on to know. But this kind of creates sort of like a tunnel vision effect, that just helps blend this together. And our garage shot, let's definitely darken it a bit, and possibly even add a little bit of cool and bring some of that red out of it. There's going to be some motion blur on this shot, so it won't be as harsh, but try to get it looking pretty good. And we'll go ahead and name this shot composite and hit OK. And we'll put our composite into a new comp, and we'll call this final composite. And we'll hit OK. And what we're going to do is enable time remapping. So we'll choose enable time remapping. And the first frame should be the start of the animation. And then the last frame of the animation, we want to move forward to when there's no more animation and set a keyframe. So those are the 2 points that we want to ease into. So if we right click, or make some room, right click and choose ease out. I can't seem to get to. And we'll right click on this one and choose ease in. So what that's going to do is create a more gradual, smooth animation. So let's take a look at what this looks like real quick. Okay, so now the camera move looks a lot more natural, and we can even speed it up if we want it to be a little quicker, and even offset it from the start so that there's a bit of a pause. So let's take a look at it, maybe a little bit quicker, and it should be a little bit more dramatic. So pretty cool. There's a lot of different things you could do here. Now, to add some motion blur, we could use the force motion blur effect, and we'll bring that out onto an adjustment layer, and that'll just add some blur. We can maybe set the samples down to 5 and turn the shutter angle, the amount, to maybe 90, and that way you can actually still see a little bit of the detail, but that's up to you. You can play around with that. And maybe we'll add a little bit of grain noise, and maybe set that to 5. So it has a little bit more texture. So here's the shot again, just to kind of see what I did, and it's a fun little technique. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. There's a lot of cool things that we combined to create this shot, and hopefully you can see some other ways to use it in your own projects. Now, be sure to check out the website. We have the After Effects basic training series. So if you're new to After Effects and you want to maybe pick up on some of the keyboard shortcuts and things like that, check out these 10 tutorials. They really give you that edge and those things that I use in the tutorials, and that way I don't have to spend too much extra time explaining everything. And that way, once you learn all the shortcuts and you watch the tutorials, then you won't be thinking to yourself, man, hurry along. And also be sure to check out our forum. We've got a lot of cool discussions going on there. If you want to talk about this technique or other ones, post a forum topic there. And our blog, a lot of cool things happening here. There's always some interesting discussions going on. We have, a new product that we announced and just a preview of that. And, some cool project files that we're giving away and things like that. So check out the blog. There's definitely some cool things on there. And of course, we have pretty cool products in our store. There's Pro Scores, our Action Essentials, which is, a great collection of stock footage and stuff like that. So check that out. All the ads are done now, so we can go back to signing off here. My name is Andrew Kramer, and we'll see you next time.